Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. Gain valuable insights by attending the podcast, then complete the assessment test to download your certificate. To do this, follow these simple steps. Click on the link in your description to access the session. Create a free account and attend the podcast. After the podcast, take the assessment test and download your certificate. It's easy, and it's free. We highly recommend checking out our subscription. Let's get started.
Yeah, I like that perspective that, you gotta have an idea about, who do you want to be, who do you want as an ideal client. You need to first have that perspective in mind.
Yeah.
I think it's very courageous of you to actually come up with that, to spend that time and to come up with those value systems internally to vet a client before coming on board, because I guess it's a two-way street, right? You need the clients and the clients also need you. So
Yeah.
that alignment
I,
has to be.
I think that the two-way fit is essential. Like
Yeah.
that literally defines if you'll have a good relationship with your customer or not, if they see the value in what you provide, and if you love working with them.
Mhm.
When I do a discovery call, this is one of the things I like to determine is if we're a good two-way fit in every area of our relationship.
Interesting. And let's move from pricing to positioning, because I think core doesn't just do the books, right? You're really stepping into this advisory space, right?
Mhm.
So how did that shift into strategic partnership evolve? Was it organic or was it an intentional shift?
It was an intentional shift.
Mm.
And again, it falls into the right customer category, into our green customer. We enjoy working with serious business owners. Part of our service is that we meet with them on monthly basis to review their financial statements and to see if there are any red flags, if we want to bring something to their attention, or if there's something they're doing well, maybe they need to find a different vendor because this one is charging too much. So this has been a part of our deliverables and of our service.
Welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast. We're trying to figure out and today we're trying to figure out what it really means to build a business with purpose and precision. Joining me is someone whose journey spans continents, careers, and bold decisions. Inna Korenzvit, the founder of Core Accounting Solutions. Welcome, Inna. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me on. It's a great break of my day.
Absolutely. Now, for all our listeners who are joining in, if you're joining us on LinkedIn or on YouTube, drop in your questions in the comments so we can look through that, and we'll try to answer as quickly as possible. And if you're looking for CP credits for this episode or want to check out the future ones, head over to mycpe.com/podcast or download our MyCPE One mobile app, which is available on Android and iOS. Now, Ina, let's begin with your incredible journey from the USSR to Canada to Arizona. That's not just relocation, right? That's reinvention. So, how did your early experiences growing up in the Soviet Union and immigrating as a teen shape your worldview, especially around resilience and work ethic?
So growing up in USSR, life wasn't great, although I didn't know what I was missing until I actually moved to Canada and found out how people live, living conditions, variety of foods in the stores, the freedom to say what you want. That was a huge eye opener. And I basically moved to Canada with my older brother and my mother.
Right.
And believe it or not, the very first summer that I moved to Canada, I got my first job as a mother's helper.
Nice.
I didn't speak English very well then, but then the kids that I was taking care of didn't mind. But I loved being able to be productive, make money for things that I wanted, and be free to do that at my age.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And, that this, what you're talking about is, I guess, what I would call an immigrant mindset, because that's what it's about, right? The mindset is about figuring out no matter what, right? And that has, I know that, that mindset has fueled so many of the most interesting businesses that I've seen. But can you tell us about your experience with motherhood, especially advocating your own son, how that has become a catalyst in redefining your career path?
So this is actually very interesting because when my husband and I decided to have a family, I was making twice as much money as he did. So
Mhm.
it was a decision that we both had to make, for me to be a stay-at-home mom, to raise my family, and to really tighten our belt on the expenses that we wouldn't be able to afford because I was staying at home and my husband was the only provider. But we
Mhm.
both decided that raising productive, contributing, well-adjusted, self-sufficient children was a more important job than for me to make money and then have somebody else raise them. And
Right.
so from the very beginning, when I had my first son, and we raised four children, four
Mhm.
boys, from the very beginning, I decided that I would be a stay-at-home mom, and this would be my primary job, which happened to be for the next 15 years until my youngest son was in high school. However, all through that time, I was still able to find ways to contribute financially to the family income. And I had little businesses on the side, like hairstyling. I was doing graphic designing. I was doing teaching, whatever it was that I could do. And all through that time, I was keeping up with my accounting skills, with technology, with software, because having my own accounting firm was a dream that I was serious about achieving and accomplishing once my family and my kids freed up my time. And, as you know, kids are the best uh, negotiators that you can find. So I felt like even being a stay-at-home mom prepared me for being a good business owner. It's time management, it's negotiation, it's compromise, it's being busy doing three things at the same time. So I don't feel I missed out on keeping up with the skills that I need as an entrepreneur.
Do you want to earn CPE credit? Take this course of MyCPE 1 to earn free credit. Click the link in the description to get started.
Very interesting. I love it. I love it. How things which you do at home really shape and build and sharpen those edges of the skill sets that you need to run a business, right? Very, very interesting. Thank you for pointing that out. And so what was that moment when core accounting officially came to life? And like, did you always picture yourself as a founder?
I did, although I sort of fell into it during the time that was obviously right, but I
Mhm.
wasn't anticipating doing it at that time. But again, my husband and I made the decision that we're not going to go into debt that we can't afford on one salary. And so my husband was working, he was the provider. I wasn't working, or not full time or not much, raising our family. And then in 2008, and everybody knows 2008, my husband was laid off from a job where he was working for 23 years. And being the optimist that I am, I told him, don't worry, now you'll stay home and take care of the kids and take care of the house, and I will get a job. Unfortunately, I shouldn't have been surprised, but I found out that the only job I can get without anything on my resume for the last 15 years was like a sales job that was maybe paying $8 an hour at that time. And I told my husband, I don't think I can support us on $8 an hour. And I started thinking of ways that I can utilize my accounting education and accounting skills and see what I could do in that way. I approached a couple of firms and I told them, let me do accounting for you. You don't have to pay me unless you notice that I'm doing a good job and I'm keeping you in business and I'm helping you survive the recession. And then you can pay me afterwards if you feel that it's worth your while. And that's how core accounting started. We initially actually started as core bookkeeping, and then later on, I changed the name to core accounting, which is more realistic to the services we offer and services we provide. But I basically just figured I need to do something, and this was the need in 2008. People couldn't afford full-time employees, so this was a great opportunity for me to come in and offer accounting services on their terms.
Interesting, interesting. And one thing that I love talking about is niches because that's where the magic happens. Now,
Mhm.
your business, core accounting, how did you land on focusing your business specifically on solo and small law firms?
So again, I keep saying it's an interesting story because everything I do is an interesting story, at least to me, and how it happens and the timing and the way I just fall into things. But we were first general bookkeepers and accountants, so we had different businesses in our portfolio. And I started thinking, what can differentiate us from other bookkeepers and accountants? Because, when you want to see a general practitioner, you'll go to the one that's closest to you. If somebody needs to see a heart specialist, they'll travel to a different country, to a different continent to see an expert. And so I wanted to find out what we can do to differentiate us. And we started looking at our portfolio and our list of clients and basically dividing them into three categories: green, yellow, and red. And those that align more with our culture, because culture to me is very, very important. It's important for me and my family, the way I raise my kids. It's important in business. And we noticed that lawyers align more with our culture. And so this is how we decided to go and focus on a niche in legal versus anything else. And basically, I look at it as a psychographic fit
Mhm.
versus geographic fit or any kind or anything else. Because if you like people you work with, if you provide the services they value, that builds for a good relationship.
You talked about culture. Now, that culture,
Mhm.
a very strong word and often misunderstood as well. It's not about just, having that habit of coming to the office on time or doing things a certain way. It's a much larger than that.
Mhm.
Give us a sneak peek into that culture of core accounting and how that aligns with lawyer firms, which is why this connect happened.
Sure, sure. So it's very important for us to have candid communication.
Right.
And I believe that attorneys often have to have difficult communications with their clients that might be painful, might be difficult for them to understand or to agree on, but that's just very important. So candid communication is essential for me with my kids, with my team, with my customers. We need to be free to say what we need to say, no matter how difficult it is. But I feel a lot of disagreements and arguments happen because of miscommunication and because you don't set guidelines basically for what's going to be done and how you work. So that's an essential one for us. Also, teamwork is another culture that we value at core. And so when we work with our customers, we work as their team. I would do as good a job for them as I would do for myself. And they need to understand that we're not outsourced accountants. We are a part of their team. We contribute to their growth. We contribute to their success like we would if we were one of the owners or anything else. And the same thing for me at core. Our culture is that we work for the good of the company, because if the firm does well, our employees will do well. And we value that, and we want them to understand that we're all working together. So teamwork is another one. The third one is do right, do
Mhm.
be ethically accountable and ethical, even if it's easier to do something quickly and maybe something that's not ethical. To us, being ethical and do what's right is another one of our huge cultures. Then this again brings it to our customers, our lawyers. I feel that for lawyers, it's important to be ethical. It's important to do what's right. They need to disclose the information. So that aligns also with our culture. Like lawyers, we work with them, the same thing for us. These kind of culture guidelines that we have for us work for us with attorneys. And again, I use the same ones in my family.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, you've been working with legal clients for a long time, especially small practices. So, what are some unique quirks or complexities involved when you're serving legal clients?
Sure, sure. So in addition to having accounting like any other business, attorneys have accountability to their clients because
Right.
oftentimes they have their clients retainers and they need to be responsible for that. They need to be accountable for that. They need to be able to account to the last penny. So for us, even if there is a penny discrepancy, it could be $1,000. If there is a discrepancy, there is a discrepancy. It needs to be investigated and corrected. And also, the bar requirement is that for them to be compliant, they need to have good accounting for their IOTA, which is their trust accounting. And then
Right.
and then many other firms where there are partners, there is a partner accountability because there is, profit distribution and you need to be able to account for that. But primary difference between regular businesses and attorneys is this trust accounting.
Right. Right. No, I can imagine, that there's a lot of structure and compliance needs, and also that trust is everything in this profession, right? I mean,
Mhm.
so so was it hard in the beginning to explain this niche to others or even to your potential clients?
It was hard, but this was our focus. So, there is a learning curve with everything that you do. We had to first determine and understand it well ourselves before we could explain it to anyone else. And in 2016, and again, this is something that was just divine providence. Maybe I put it out into the universe. I don't know. But in 2016, Core was recognized as the firm of the future because then we decided that we will go virtual. So we
Mhm.
wanted to have everything in the cloud. We wanted to work with our clients remotely. And that also had to be a mindset change. And also another difference that we implemented was value pricing or fixed pricing. And in those days, that wasn't even heard of. So we had to have a few serious conversations, working remotely, explaining the trust accounting responsibility for attorneys, and also value pricing. Luckily, as part of our benefit for being selected as the firm of the future by Intuit, we got to work with an incredible specialist accountant, nice guy, Ron Baker. And
Yeah.
so he helped us find our niche. He taught us about value pricing, and then we just took it from there. And now even a lot of attorneys and law firms are looking at fixed pricing, value pricing. So
True, true, true.
yeah,
I guess just luck. And this is like I said in the beginning of the podcast, right? That's the immigrant mindset, right? Figuring out no matter what, and I can clearly see that that has been shaping you, your career, and especially for the fact that you did this in 2016. Very timely, actually. I mean, it's not like you could see the future, but it is very timely. you know.
yeah. No, I sort of did, even as we work now, I want to try and stay ahead of the technology, of adapting to things that are changing. Like, I'll give you an example now. Being a CFO is the buzzword. We've been doing CFO services since we switched to core accounting solutions. We weren't calling it CFO services, but we were calling it managerial accounting. But basically, everything that is offered now by CFOs was part of our book of service. Like that's what we've always done, because we weren't just data entry people, but we actually were helping businesses grow, make decisions on the actual numbers and not on their gut feeling, and helping them see their numbers. Because obviously, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. But again, that's something that we were doing already for the last 10 years, which is now becoming something special. And the
Yeah.
same thing with value pricing, and even with AI. We started using AI and experimenting with that long ago. We've been doing beta for different software companies and technologies. So I try to stay ahead of the need and ahead of the deliverable, so we stay current and can offer best services to our customers.
Well, I guess, yeah, I think I view you more of like an opportunist, because you never said no to an opportunity. The moment you saw it, you're like, all right, we should try that. We should give it a shot. You mentioned about, the farm of the future, and you work with Ron Baker. You have been selected. You mentioned you'll be selected as the Institute Farm of the Future.
Mhm.
So how did that change your view on billing and client value?
Access latest and trending CPE courses with my CPE One Unlimited Access subscription. Subscribe now.
It was a very difficult thing to change, but the decision to switch to value pricing and fixed pricing was very quick, because I could see the benefit in it. I could see the potential to grow. I could see the potential to scale. So it was great. Like anything else, determining fixed price is a skill. It is difficult. And that is something I'll never forget, because in one of our sessions with Ron and other people that were brought in to speak to us, I remember someone saying, "You price with your gut." And so, it's just saying that unless you have a very good sense of the deliverables, which is what I like to call it, I sort of created this myself. What I say is a bill for the deliverables. And the deliverables have to line up with the price that you charge. And the customer has to feel that they're getting more than they're paying you. So it was, again, I was learning to do it. I made mistakes. Oftentimes I underpriced. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, but if you give someone a price and they agree right away, you feel like you charge too little. And if they say, we don't want to go with you, you feel like you charge too much.
Yeah.
The best way is to charge for the deliverables that they feel they're getting the value, and you feel like you're getting paid for your expertise accordingly.
Sure. No, I agree to you on that. And when you're moving to a value pricing model, when you're moving away, I'm sure, like there was a point where you also had to let your clients know that, you're moving away from the hourly billing to this value pricing. So, like, what was the hardest part about telling your clients about this?
It was really, really scary. And I talked to Ron about it. He was probably sick of me talking to him about it. But it was very, very scary, because as a new business, obviously losing customers was huge. We were scared of that. I felt like every customer that I'll switch to value pricing is just going to leave me. And then we also wanted to come up with the price that they'll understand and see the value, which I didn't have the skill that I have now to determine the price at that time. And then having those conversations, that was the biggest stress. And I know that some people would just send emails and notify people of the change in the pricing structure. I actually scheduled an appointment with all our customers, and I talked to them about it, and I explained to them the benefits of value pricing. And believe it or not, we didn't lose even one customer. And I feel that the biggest selling point was that it's better for our relationship. It's not even for the price, because I felt like I'll offer them the price that they'll be happy with. But it's better for a relationship, because I didn't want them to worry about calling me and being charged in 6-minute increments. Or if I spend 2 hours with QuickBooks Online trying to resolve the issue they were having and then billing them for 2 hours, I didn't want them to see a sticker, price shock and say, well, why is it 2 hours more this month? So instead of having those conversations every month, why is it more? Why is it so much? If it's a fixed price, we do our job. It shouldn't matter to them how long it takes us, as long as they get what they want us to deliver to them.
The deliverables. That's
Yeah.
true. It's true. And this is what you're saying. It's so much tied to the identity of this profession, right? The hourly billing, it kind of feels like you're in your comfort zone, and when you're changing that into this value-based pricing is almost like reteaching your clients how to see your value, and that can be a challenge oftentimes. But it's very very interesting to know that you were able to retain all your clients and they were able to see that value. And the way you put this perspective that you put in, that sometimes you could come across an issue wherein you need to spend more time than what is required to get it solved, but to ensure that your clients are not getting to face the brunt for it, because under the hourly pricing that could be the case, but the value pricing, that's where it's value, right? It doesn't matter something that was happening in half an hour. If it took 2 hours, you don't need to worry, because at the end of the day you're still going to get that value of having everything delivered. So very very interesting.
And for me, the reason it made sense very, very quickly is because if, let's say, experts like us can get something done in 15 minutes, that would take another bookkeeper to take 2 hours. Then if we do it in 15 minutes and we charge for 15 minutes, then do we work ourselves out of business? And then if somebody else 2 or 3 hours to do it, why should the customer be penalized by paying someone who is just not good enough?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, charging for time just doesn't make sense to me. You charge for deliverables and for the expertise that you offer.
All right. So we'll do a little bit of a role play over here, because I really want to know, how do you now communicate with your value to your clients in a way that doesn't really rely on minutes and margins?
So first of all, as we grew and as I grew professionally, I understood that not every customer is a good two-way fit with us.
Mm-hmm.
So that helped me right away determine who is the green customer and who is someone else that I will make an introduction to a colleague that might be a better fit. So knowing who your customer is, who is your right customer, and even more importantly, knowing who is not the right customer for you is essential. And so
Mm-hmm.
once I determined that, we look for specific customers. We look for someone who sees the value in accounting, in having clean books, and using the numbers to make decisions as the right customer for us because they look at accounting as an investment, not as an expense.
Right.
If somebody is looking for having their books done so they can just give it to their CPA at the end of the year and pay taxes, that's not the right customer for us because we want to work with serious business owners and, like I said, that use their numbers and use their accounting because they want to grow and they need to know, can they afford to hire another paralegal? Can they afford to, launch their business in different area of legal expertise? So this is someone that would be a good fit for us and will be a good fit for them. Once you speak to the right customer, the value pricing conversation is easy because they're basically on the same page as you. You don't need to explain it to them. You don't need to convince them. You don't need to break their arm to show them why accounting is the backbone of their business. And every law firm is a business. Yes, they're lawyers, but they're running a business. They're there to serve their customers, but also to provide for their families.
True, true. I like that perspective that you gotta have an idea about who do you want to be, who do you want as an ideal client. You need to first have that perspective in mind.
Yeah.
So I think it's very courageous of you to actually come up with that, to spend that time and to come up with those value systems internally to vet a client before coming on board? Because I guess it's a two-way street, right? uh, you need the clients and the clients also need you. So
Yeah.
that alignment
I,
has to be.
I think that the two-way fit is essential.
Yeah.
Like that literally defines if you'll have a good relationship with your customer or not, if they see the value in what you provide, and if you love working with them.
Mhm.
When I do a discovery call, this is one of the things I like to determine is if we're a good two-way fit in every area of our relationship.
Interesting, interesting. And let's move from pricing to positioning, because I think core doesn't just do the books, right? You're really stepping into this advisory space, right?
Mhm.
So how did that shift into strategic partnership evolve? Was it organic or was it an intentional shift?
It was an intentional shift.
Mhm.
And again, it falls into the right customer category, into our green customer. We enjoy working with serious business owners. Part of our service is that we meet with them on monthly basis to review their financial statements and to see if there are any red flags, if we want to bring something to their attention, or if there's something they're doing well, maybe they need to find a different vendor because this one is charging too much. So this has been a part of our deliverables and of our service since we started. And so
Right.
having a serious business owner, they will meet with you every month. If for no other reason that unless they know they're meeting with you, they'll receive the financial reports, they'll put it on a pile with everything else, and they'll never look at it. So this basically something that we wanted to do and wanted to provide. And then also, I compare it to like going to law school. When you go to law school, when you apply to law school, obviously you'll have to have high LSAT score.
Right.
For me, working with an accountant, providing these kind of CFO services has to be a given.
Right.
And what we have though is we developed a one-page tool which we
Mhm.
send to our customer. It's a list of about 20 options, and we ask them to check off which deliverables would they like to see and what do they need from us. And then based on that, we build our services. And some of them could be so busy, they'll say, Ina, I just want to meet with you quarterly. That's fine. We'll still do their books monthly, we'll still reconcile, we'll still have the financial reports, but we'll meet for a review quarterly. But basically, once they check off what they would ideally like to get, we build our deliverables, we build our project, and we build our price.
This is very interesting. Like what you're saying, it may sound business as usual to you because you're probably doing it for many years, but you have kind of mastered into a process that a lot of people are still struggling to get their head around, right? It's very, very, and that's why I wanted you on this podcast, because I saw that there is that uniqueness and I wanted everybody to know about this. So
Thank
thank
you.
you, for being here. Now, you mentioned about a checklist. So I'm pretty certain there are also some metrics or systems that you now focus on when you're helping these law firms become more profitable and efficient. So what are those?
Well, it's basically looking at their financial statements on a monthly basis or on the very least on quarterly basis. They need to see how they're doing and not just the bottom line, but we'll basically generate those reports on a month, like month by month, so you can see the trend. If you
Right.
see an increase in something, what caused it? Is it good or bad? When you
Yeah.
see a decrease in the bottom line, are you losing some money in income? Is your marketing not working and you're spending a lot of money on it without the return? Or is it that your expenses have gone up and shouldn't have done according to your income? So it's that kind of thing, looking at their financials and helping them decide what needs to be done. Do we change this? Do we increase that? Do we get a different marketing person? This one is not working. So it's working with our customers and helping them make decisions that will project their income or their expenses, and then they can make decisions based on that, whether they want to grow. Is this a good time? Should we wait another quarter? Things like that. And even with what's happening in our politics or world environment, which could make a difference to their business. So we even look at that.
Yeah, that could be geopolitical factors, no doubt about it. And
Sure.
I find that there are many small firm owners that aren't just looking at data, right? They want direction, and it sounds like you're giving them both, which is fantastic. And with everything that you do, like I'm pretty certain you also have team members, and so my question is, how do you train your team to think like this advisors, to have this advisory mindset? Because I guess that's a very hard cultural shift to make.
It is very hard. It's especially hard for me, I think, unless everybody thinks that way, because I'm a recovering perfectionist. So I don't want to lower my standards by delegating something to somebody else. I want them to do it as well as I do. So it's very difficult because, as we all know, nobody will do anything as well as we do ourselves. But that is something that I needed to learn to do. And this goes back into open communication. Whenever I point something out to the team member, it is never a criticism. It is always a learning opportunity. I'm not mad at them. I'm not criticizing them. I'm just doing it as a learning opportunity. So I point things out to them and they know it comes from a good place. And basically, guidance never stops. My oldest son is 36 years old, and I tell him, I will always tell you what to do. I will always give you advice, because just because you become an adult doesn't take it away. I'm still your parent. I will always be wiser because I've been alive 25 years longer than you, and I have 25 years more experience. So the
Mhm.
same thing with my team members. I want to be able to guide them and show them things, and as a teaching opportunity, and also help them grow professionally. So my
Yeah.
team knows me, they know my personality, they're all aligned with our culture, because if they weren't aligned, they wouldn't be working for Core. And they welcome that opportunity when I have to explain to them why I do something in a certain way. And I get their buy-in because it makes sense to them as well.
True, true. No, I mean, and I think one of the things that stands out about Core is how it's family. It's a family firm, right?
Mhm.
And that brings its own unique strengths and challenges, right?
Yeah.
Having a family firm. So, if I were to ask you, and I think I'm getting a deep uh, into some dark areas here, but what lessons have you learned about leadership when family is part of the team?
I've learned many, many lessons. They're all good ones. So I really can't complain about my experience working with my family. But first and foremost, just because someone is your family, you still need to treat them respectfully. You have to talk to them like you would talk to any employee. It's so easy for me to just be mad at my husband and tell him, like, why are you doing it this way? But I still don't, because when we're working together, I respect him as much as I would respect any other employee that came to us from somewhere else. And so you have to maintain that relationship. It's a different relationship than we have after 5 p.m. It's a
Yeah.
different relationship that we have between 9 to 5. And it's also setting guidelines and expectations from the very beginning. Like when I started working with Mark, who is my oldest son, we're now working together for 10 years. It's been great, and I'm sure it will continue to be great. People were telling me, don't work with your family, don't hire your son. People don't talk for 25 years because they couldn't deal in business together. And so I took that as a lesson, and I told Mark, first and foremost, I'm your mother. First and foremost, your benefit, your progress, your success is my number one priority. If you find a different job than Core, run with it, go for it. Don't worry about Core. I'm not going to be hurt. You need to do what's good for you. And if we work together and we see that we disagree on things, We will always be mother and son first. We will always have a great relationship, and we'll put core behind us. And so when you have this kind of an expectation and you are openly communicate with it, you don't, like Mark wouldn't have to feel guilty if he started working for me and then got another job. It's all out, it's all open. We made these decisions and we basically solved the disagreements before they even started.
Wow. Wow. I mean, this is truly phenomenal. How you brought this out. It's a very, very unique perspective. So thank you, for sharing that. Now,
Sure.
when you look back on your journey, from babysitting as a teen to
Mhm.
running the firm, I'm going to be asking a question that may be a little bit subjective, but if I were to ask you that when you look back on your journey from babysitting as a team to running a firm, what are you most proud of?
So this might not be a popular answer because I know many women feel differently about things the way than I do. I'm an old timer. I was raised with old values. But basically, I honestly feel accomplished because I raised an incredible family. I can honestly say my boys are the best. They're educated, they're self-sufficient, they have great families. But also by the same token, I didn't have to give up my dream of owning my own business and having a career. Um, you know, I accomplished both. I basically was a stay-at-home mom, raised my family. Maybe the timing had to be shifted a little bit, but yet I still accomplished my other dream of being a successful entrepreneur and running my own firm and enjoying that part of my life.
Very motivating. And we have a lot of listeners to this podcast, right? I'm not quite sure who they are or where they are.
Mhm.
But if there is a working mom or an aspiring accountant who is listening to this podcast today, wondering if she can build on her own or not, what would you want her to take away from your story?
I think the biggest thing that I noticed occurring now with like TikTok and social media and whatever is that comparison is a thief of joy. Don't compare yourself to anyone. There is more than one path to get things accomplished. There's the right time for everybody. That right time might be different for everybody. So don't feel guilty if you want to postpone your career and do raise your family and stay at home. Because I have to tell you, kids grow up so fast. It's like you don't want, I didn't want to miss a minute of it. But by the same token, if you do want to build your career, and delay your family, don't feel guilty about that because there is a right path for everybody. You need to do what you feel is right for you, not what your neighbor is doing, not what another accountant is doing, not what you think your family. Well, you need to have your family support, but you need to be on the same page with your spouse or with your partner. But other than that, just do things on your own time, on your own schedule, in the way that you feel is right.
Wow, Wow, it brings a smile to my face to listen to this. And I'm pretty certain if at all there is, like I said, a working mom or an aspiring accountant who is thinking about this, they would go back with something very powerful. So, thank you. Thank you, Nina. That is such a powerful reminder. And I guess that's the best accounting firms aren't just, because the best accounting firms aren't just about systems and software, right? They're built on values, and yours is shining through every part of your story. So, you know, Ina, thank you for sharing not just your strategies, but also your story. It's been a blast to have you as a guest on this
No.
podcast, right? And, before I let you go, if people wanted to know more about Ina and
Mhm.
wanted to get in touch with her or core accounting, how can they get a hold of you or your business?
Sure. So we have a very easy website to remember. It's coreaccounting.com. It
Mhm.
has a little bit of biography, my biography about Mark, about Core. And also there is a link to schedule with us, either a discovery call or email our email address, but basically coreaccounting.com is the best way to find us and the best way to reach out to us.
Well, there you have it, folks. That's Core Accounting. That's Core with a K. So, Core Accounting is the website. And with that, we come to the end of this episode. And so, to all our listeners, if this conversation hit home, share it with someone else who's trying to build something real, resilient, and rooted in purpose. And you can always continue to catch more episodes on MyCPE1 app on your mobile or on mycpe1.com/podcast. So, with that, thank you for tuning in, everyone. And until next time, take care and keep innovating in everything that you do. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Access latest and trending CPE courses with my CPE One Unlimited Access subscription. Subscribe now